All right, good morning. Welcome everybody to our August meeting of Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority. Do have one item that I would like to discuss, and it's always a happy time when an employee with this many years of service gets to retire, and I'm envious of him. I don't know if I want to retire from my job or from COPTA, but one of the two maybe. But Terry Wilson has almost 23 years of service with COPTA, starting as a bus operator, then promoted to route supervisor in 1998. He came to COPTA after he worked at the Bethany Police Department. His hobbies include fishing, making home videos, and tracing his family genealogy. He likes old classic cars and owns and restores an MG sports car that he displays at car shows. I think the one thing that I know that he's done from looking at his resume is the 17 years he's been the coordinator of the ASA Girls Olympic Softball Association, and the tournaments were always held at the Oklahoma City Softball Memorial. He met his wife at COPTA, who I understand is also a route supervisor. You're going to keep working, I guess, and let him be a stay-at-home mom. So, excuse me a minute while I come down front. I do want to read this because I think it depicts all of the years of your service. Whereas Terry Wilson has faithfully supported and served the Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority from March of 1992 to July of 2015. Whereas Terry has given 22 years of time and energy to providing professional service to the citizens of Central Oklahoma. And whereas Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority wishes to formally express its deep appreciation and gratitude to Terry for all he's done for the authority and the citizens of Central Oklahoma. Now therefore, it be resolved that COPTA, that this resolution be presented to Terry as a symbol of the high esteem in which regard to his service is held, and as a token of our sincere and heartfelt wishes for future success. So. Now you can come back and restore old buses maybe or something.
Yeah. Can I say something?
Yes, please.
I'd like to thank everybody that's here. Working at COPTA has been a blessing to me. Being a high school graduate, very limited college, law enforcement related seminars, to be able to obtain what I have in life is because of COPTA. The salaries are decent, the benefits are decent. I know several years ago when Randy Hume was a director, they implemented the 401-457, and that has been such a blessing. I don't know how many of you had anything to do with that, but that was a positive thing. I'm looking forward to the future. I'm going to get to do a little traveling with my wife, who's here today. We got a cruise scheduled in April. If I'd have kept working, we wouldn't be able to do that. As I'm getting older, it's time to enjoy life. So thank you, board members, Jason, Kevin, Ravina, Michelle. Thank you. Thank you a lot.
I'm going to put you on the spot. I always ask retirees, what one thing would you, if you could do, would you improve in this organization?
Well, there's two things that need to be done. One of the things I've done.
Your wife's still working.
Yeah. One of the things several of the situations that I was working in, I was working at the desk at the May 3rd, 99 tornado, which eliminated a lot of more part of my area where I live. We've worked at the desk on an ice storm. I was working at the PM desk on the Christmas Eve blizzard. Very, very complicated scenario. I would still like to see, not only for the employees of Embark, but for the citizens of Oklahoma City, a 15-passenger, four-wheel drive vehicle at our disposal when those scenarios arrive, because we had such a problem getting to people. I think that's a crucial thing, and I think that will pay off in the future. Whether it'll be this winter or not, I don't know. The second thing I'd like to see is a storm shelter at 2000 South May. And what reiterates that feeling is May 31st, a couple years ago, when that 2-mile wild tornado was out west moving my way. I was at the desk working again, directing buses where to go. I thought I was goner. It turned and went the other way. Then I got to realize there's no place to go. So of all the people that's there, and you never know, it may happen at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when Jason, Ravine, and Michelle and everybody's in the office. We need a place to go, and I think that will save lives in the future. And I know it's a budget thing, so I'll let you guys worry about that. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. Congratulations. All right. We do have a presentation by Jacobs Engineering on the status of our MAPS 3 downtown streetcar project, and Robert Manley, I believe, with Jacobs is going to give us an update on that.
I will. Thank you for having me this morning. Like you said, I'm Robert Manley with Jacobs Engineering, and I'm just going to give you kind of a brief update on where we're at with the maintenance, streetcar maintenance facility. Show you kind of how we got where we're at, and then show you a little bit on the schedule where we're going. So in this presentation, we went through a scenario where we looked at about 13 different sites and tried to determine where this facility needed to be. So I'll show you the program requirements that we felt from that study of looking at all those sites that we felt that we needed to bring forward and carry on with the facility. I'll show you what's in most maintenance facilities for streetcars. There are now several of those in the country. We've actually got a subconsultant on board that has worked with those and designed those. So we have a good space program. I'll show you the Oklahoma City program and how it relates to other cities. And then we'll get into some of the pretty pictures of the site plan and the building plans and some 3Ds. And I'll show you the materials that we're looking at and how they relate to the context of the area. I'll show you the cost estimate where we're at right now at 30% design, and I'll just kind of touch on the schedule for the main line and the streetcar and where we're at for that. So when we were looking at the 13 station location or maintenance facility sites, we looked at key components. We wanted to make sure that there was good accessibility, not only for the streetcar, but also for employees and for the maintenance of way vehicles. We didn't want to have any preclusions on the site. We also wanted to look at the short-term program, but also the long-term program. As your streetcar facility grows, you get more routes, you have more streetcars. We didn't want you to have to build another facility somewhere else. We wanted to make sure that this site, the chosen site, would be able to accommodate any of the future development that you guys may have. We also looked at the urban adaptability. If we were in Bricktown, we would want to make sure that we were cognizant of what was happening around us. The site that we chose, we have a historic building adjacent to us. So we wanted to make sure we're compatible with that. We want to make sure we fit with the neighborhood, maybe not exactly, but we want to be cognizant of it and compatible with it. We also wanted to cover as many of the streetcar vehicles as possible. So in a typical streetcar maintenance facility anywhere in the country, You will always have a heavy maintenance track, and that's a position where you actually are able to lift the vehicle. And you will have a service and inspection track, which will have a pit below and a mezzanine above, so you can access all sides of the vehicle. And you'll have a cleaning position where you're able to clean not only the outside, but also the inside of the vehicle. So around those maintenance points, you'll have repair areas. Those are areas that you'll be able to take the axles off the vehicle, which we call the trucks, pull those off to the side, put a spare on, and do maintenance work on the truck, repairing brakes, repairing hoses, that sort of thing. You'll also have an area where you'll be able to access the top of the vehicle where you repair and maintain the HVAC system and the pantograph system, which the pantograph is actually where it ties to the electrical catenary lines above. And a big, huge component is the storage of your parts and pieces. Every facility, anytime you have maintenance, you need to have a lot of storage. And so we made sure that we have not only ground level storage, but we also have a mezzanine level storage for all the parts and pieces that we need in this facility. Adjacent to the maintenance part of the building, we have an office and administration area. Throughout the programming of this, we tried to make sure that we didn't duplicate functions. We want to give you the best value in the building. And so part of that is, let's share the restrooms. So there's not a whole lot of maintenance individuals in the building. There's an admin staff, and there's probably like 6 or 8 maintenance workers. They will be able to share the restroom facilities. That way we don't have to duplicate those functions, as well as the break room, the conference room, the training rooms, those sort of things. As I mentioned, there's an upper level, a second story that allows access to the top of the vehicle. And when I get into the pretty pictures, you'll start to see how the functions of the space actually dictates kind of how the building lays out. We also wanted to make sure that we had future expansion. Like I said, we're not just building this building for today. We're trying to make sure that the building is what you will need in the future and easily adaptable for the future. You won't have to tear down pieces of it to add pieces. You'll be able to just add on to it, and you won't have to buy additional property. So outside the building, we're going to have maintenance away vehicles. Maintenance away vehicles are your supervisor vehicles, pickup trucks. There will be some sort of an overhead like boom truck that accesses the catenary lines and anything that's above. These are the vehicles that are pretty much in daily use. We will have storage for the catenary system, the overhead conductors. There's going to be some extra poles that you'll want to have. There's going to be some wire that you'll want to have, as well as some of the armatures and things. Those will be concealed back in the backside of the site, out of sight, behind fencing and behind walls. The yard track itself, once the streetcar runs on the street. Once you exit the street, we have an area that is yard track. It can be used for storage. It's used for moving the vehicles from different bays. So you may bring it into cleaning bay, and then you may take it into a maintenance bay, and then you can store your vehicles on those tracks as well. We also will have outside, we'll have the parking for the employees. We're going to have maintenance materials. Just there's a lot of parts and pieces that happen on these vehicles and in a streetcar, so we'll have those stored pieces. We'll have recycling, waste handling, dumpsters. Obviously, that's a requirement, as well as fire truck access to all components of the building, making sure that we worked with the fire marshal and coordinated with them to make sure we have access to where they need to pull hoses if there's ever a situation. So from a program, this is kind of just a rolled up program. It shows that you can see where we're at about 18,298 square feet. That's an enclosed component of the building. We also have just a covered component of the building at about 3,000 square feet. So overall, 21,000 square feet. is where we're at right now. Like I said, the 18,000 is really the piece that we went to other cities and we compared to what they're doing and how it relates to their facilities. So on the comparison, we compared to Kansas City, which is about 80% constructed right now, Detroit, which is still in a design process, Tucson, which has been in operation for several years, and your program itself. So you can see we're about 18,500 is a good number for a streetcar, opening day streetcar maintenance facility. The couple of items to note, the Detroit program, they have a very confined site. They have no future expansion on that site. So what they build now is what they're stuck with. If they ever expand their system, they're going to have to find another place for an additional maintenance facility. That's why they're at a 15,000 square feet. They just compacted the building into a site. And we think, in our opinion, they took some liberties that we don't feel are the best value for the building. On the Tucson, the building is about 1,000 square feet larger, but in that, they actually have a 1,000 square foot bay, a heavy maintenance bay for their historic streetcar. So the historic streetcar group actually paid for that additional square footage, and that allowed them to have all of their historic and their modern day streetcar in one building. So if you take off the 1,000 square feet, we're back to the 18,500. So we're right in the ballpark, and feel like we're giving you guys the best value. So now getting into some of the pretty pictures, a little bit more information. Where is the site that we chose out of those 13 sites? On your upper left, you see the downtown Oklahoma City map. Downtown is on the north side of that. Directly south, just before you get to I-40, you can see the Union Station, historic Union Station. We are just to the west of that. We have the site that's located between Hudson, Walker, and 7th. It's about little over 2.2 acres, and MAPS is in the process of purchasing this residence, and you all actually own the parking lot that's here. So in the future, this will actually be almost a 3-acre site, a little over a 3-acre site. So our building, in order to allow streetcars to come down Hudson and pull into the maintenance bays, you can see we've got the service inspection bay, the heavy maintenance bay, and the wash track. We need to make sure that the building is far enough to the backside to allow those streetcars to clear 7th Street, come into the storage yard, and access the building. This is actually a variance we're working with DDRC on to allow the building to be more than 10 feet from the back of curb, and they don't have a problem with it. They're very happy with what we've done so far. You can see over to the left or the west, we have the service court for deliveries. We have a turnaround for fire truck, parking for our mow vehicles, as well as in the front, right off 7th, we have employee parking as well as visitor parking. And to the east is the development where we have the residence and the parking lot for your future. And we have, let me point out that we do have multiple future storage tracks that we made sure that we are accommodating space for. So inside the building, you can see on the legend that represents the offices, the service, the heavy maintenance, all those parts and pieces that we had in our program. The office space is really concentrated towards the front of the building on the north side, and that allows visitors to come in, but the whole building itself is secure and controlled from the lobby space. So if employees come in, they're badged, they can come in and get into the maintenance facility, but just your everyday person off the street can't. And you can note that the parts storage area is about 1,800 square feet, not 18,000. And that's just the first level storage. We have the mezzanine level storage, which is several hundred square feet more. So we've got a lot of storage space, and we want to make sure that we were doing some of the things that other maintenance facilities have lessons learned that they needed additional storage. So we've made sure we've addressed that. On the second floor, you can see where we have the mezzanine. We have a parts elevator. It's a freight elevator that will be able to bring parts and heavy equipment up, as well as a staircase for employees. One thing that in a streetcar maintenance facility, we have a safety platform that is not accessible unless the streetcar is in the bay itself. The reason we do this, we don't want to have to put a whole lot of railings in that space. And you can walk across the top of the streetcar. So when the streetcar pulls in, gates will close. There's beam sensors that are broken, and that allows the gates above to open and allows employees to get in and actually work on the top of the vehicle without having any possibility of falling and being injured, which is a good lesson learned that as streetcar facilities and light rail facilities have been developed, these are technologies that are becoming more and more popular. And that repair shop is really for being able to work on the air conditioners and the pantographs, and we will have it's a monorail crane that we can lift the components off the top of the vehicle, take them over to the repair shop, and lower them down onto carts where they can maneuver them around, and all their parts and pieces are up there for doing repair work. So now some 3D illustrative pictures that kind of show you what the facility is going to look like and really to define how the facility how the functions of the facility define the envelope of the building. So on the site, we've got Hudson on the right, Walker on the left, 7th on the north. You can see how the tracks come into the larger component of the building, and offices being on the north side of the building, and I-40 being on the south. We actually have a large sound wall on I-40, so it completely screens the building from that south facade. So a little bit of going back to those program requirements, we wanted to address the historic nature of the area. The historic nature of the area is that we've got Union Station, which is a beautiful limestone building. It's got a red clay tile roof. We wanted to pull some of those pieces into this building, but not really duplicate the arches and make another representation of that. We just wanted to be cognizant that it's there, use some of the materials in more of a modern and contemporary type feel. So the front facade of the building is actually a 19-foot tall limestone wall. We are using the same lintels and sills that are on Union Station, which are limestone. And so the patterning is very similar. We're also putting a canopy of red architectural metal that will match the red in the clay tile roofs. It's kind of an orangish, maroonish red. But so that everyone coming to this facility understands where they're going, where the entrance of the building is, we've placed a jewel box or a glass enclosure with doors on the east and the west, so we don't have that north wind coming in directly into the facility. And that allows people to, it's a wayfinding function. On the east facade, again, we're trying to bring in a few little pieces of the historic Union Station. These are going to be 14 by 14 overhead doors, and we're using the same sort of door that's on the Union Station in their loading dock area. We're duplicating the motif from those. And in this image, you can really see how the function of the building, where the heavy maintenance bay is at the low point, we will actually be able to lift that entire streetcar up 60 inches, 5 feet. The streetcar itself is 12 feet tall, and so that's 17 feet. We've got clearance for structure, and so that sets that edge of the building over there at about 19 to 20 feet. Over on the north side of the building, we have the mezzanine, which is a two-story space. So that roof is actually set at 26 feet, and that allows that access to the top of the service inspection on the vehicle. So that really defined the slope, and then we have the open bay where we have the cleaning and the washing of the vehicles. In the next image, you can see over on the left, we have the office space. The office space is only a one-story. We don't need 2 stories. So in that situation, we just kept a very low, flat roof. Working with Jason, we understood that your preference on the roof material was a 3-ply roof, something that you guys can repair easily. Very familiar with it on other buildings. So that's what we're using on this. We're trying to keep it as maintenance-friendly and easy to work with. I'll show you the materials here in just a second. These are just some images to show where we're getting some north light in to those mezzanine level as well as the maintenance areas, and trying to get as many windows in the office space as possible. And here you can really see where we're tying that stone with what the stone is on we're using the same coursing. We're going to use the same stone that's on Union Station, as well as that red architectural metal roof, which will be complementary to the red clay tile roof. And the parking lot, and obviously dumpster and trash enclosure and that sort of thing. So material-wise, architectural metal panel for the red roof, the ashlar coarse limestone, which matches Union Station. On a lower area in the back part, we want to make sure we're protecting the building as best as possible. So we're using a burnished CMU block that will allow that pieces, parts, and components be rolled in and moved in, and it'll protect the building. The main component of the building, the main walls of the building, will actually be deep rib architectural metal. They're metal panels. It's a component that actually is insulated, as well as it's a locked system, and we get weather protection, insulation, everything, interior finish, exterior finish, all in one panel. We put it up, we're done. It eliminates a lot of expense on having different trades come in and have to put up sheetrock and all that sort of thing. And on the back piece, the large roof, we're actually using a standing seam metal roof, just from the fact that it's a very large surface, and we want to make sure that it's protected as best as possible. So cost, we have worked diligently. We value engineered. We feel that the building is valued probably right around $5.385 million. When we put this estimate together, we were looking at what things we might want to keep for the future, so we have some bid alternates. But without the bid alternates, we actually ended up coming in at 5.326. Our trend is going down. We're going to continue trying to do that as we developed beyond 60% and towards 60% beyond. And hopefully by the time it goes out to bid, we will actually come in lower and be able to afford some of the bid alternates, one of which is actually doing a air conditioning type system that's in the maintenance facility part. Right now we're using very similar to what other COPTA facilities use, or Embark facilities, that they use a natural ventilation system, but it's about $100,000 to put in a direct, indirect cooling system. But we think that that might be something that you might want. So from the overall program, we're actually a little bit over budget what we originally set about 4 or 5 years ago. Obviously inflation, we didn't include some equipment and things in this. So we're about $800,000 over on that original budget, but from the overall streetcar program, which is about $128 million, we are $633,000 under. So we are trending under. We're going to, like I said, we're going to continue trying to pull those numbers down as we move forward. The design and construction activities that we're looking at, you may have seen the slide before, but it's the main line. We are in the process of doing 60% design. That will continue through March of 2016. The maintenance facility is about a month behind right now. The main line, they are not tied together. There's no reason that the maintenance facility can't come in early or later than the main line. But we are in 60% design right now, and we are actually going to try and condense the schedule a little bit. But right now, we're carrying April 2016, have all documents ready for bid. The Riel procurement package, we're looking at August 2015. The vehicle, the intent on the vehicles is get those signed, get those underway, and have the maintenance facility ready when the first vehicle is delivered. It can be delivered straight to the maintenance facility and set on the tracks. So our construction right now, we're looking spring 2016. This is actually for everything, but we are looking for about a year duration on the maintenance facility. We don't foresee this being more than a 12-month construction project, especially since it's a cleared site already, and we'll be able to get utilities in and out really quick, so we feel that's a conservative number. Commissioning is going to be 2018. Maintenance facility will be a little bit earlier, and then the entire system will open 2018. And that is my presentation. Any questions?
Is this all MAPS 3 money, so there's not any federal transit money involved?
That is correct. Terry, when the cars pull in,
Yes.
you have to back them out?
The street
Or
cars
the-
are actually bi-directional.
Are they? Okay.
Yes. So they can go either direction. And in this situation, yes, if the vehicle pulls in, it just essentially goes the other direction.
Yeah, so-
Yep.
Okay. All right, any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. May I ask you a question? And this is for the board as well. Are we starting to look at cost in regards to any sort of streetcar expansion across the city? I've been noticing as we've been looking at commuter rail and these sorts of things that we're actually talking about expanding the streetcar into different parts of the city. And I'm wondering if, as we started talking about a next MAPS and the GEO bond, are we starting to look at numbers that might help us think about planning in a MAP or in a GEO bond? Do you have?
You want me to take this, David, or you? I can tell you yes. We are looking at things. David, you probably answer that better than I can.
Good morning, David Todd, Program Manager with the MAPS office. Really, all we're tasked right now is doing the streetcar that is a downtown circular. There's lots of dialogue going on with other groups. City Manager is having those conversations with what you're talking about. And certainly the route that we're putting together is expandable. We keep that in mind as we've gone along with our design, and that's been one of the main points that the subcommittee and certainly staff also is interested in, is that we don't just build this one little track. It will be expandable, and hopefully it will go out east and go north in all different directions, and we have that on our route.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any citizens to be heard? If not, with approval of our minutes, I would have a motion to approve our minutes of our joint parking and finance committee.
Move approval.
All in favor? Opposed? And then also approval of our minutes of our regular board meeting of July 10th.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Consent docket, several items on there. Are there any that the trustees would like any individual discussion on? Item B, I think Jason might say one word about that, if you would.
Yeah, this is just our renewal with Midwest City. As most are aware, they are a partner with us and help us financially support Route 15. In fact, they fund the majority of that bus route so that service can be provided in Midwest City. Rose State is our other partner on that particular route.
Okay. Any other items? If not, do I hear a motion to approve our consent docket? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Items for individual consideration. Item A is consideration of approval of change order number 1 to the contract with W.L. McNatt and Company for tenant build-out of the Arts District retail space. Jason?
Yeah, change order number 1 is for $29,473. This is our first change order for the first phase of the retail build-out in the Arts District garage. It's an increase of 1.47%, putting the total cost of the contract with this change order at $2,034,473. And you can see from the attachment as well as the memo, it's really a miscellaneous list of kind of smaller items. There's nothing on the list that's too significant. For example, we had to add a couple of cleanouts to the sanitary sewer for a cost of about $2,986. There was a section of drywall that we added to the employee medical center that wasn't originally contemplated when the design was looked at initially. That's a cost of $1,787. We're tying in at a different location on the water line than what was originally planned. And so you can see, just looking down through that list, they're all minor type changes. There is a exposed pipe in the pedestrian concourse, and we're adding some heat tape or a little heating element to that line to keep it from freezing in the winter. And then the other thing, you'll notice the last item on the list there, the insulation around the roof drains. The roof drains for the garage are actually mounted above the ceiling of the retail space, so with changes in temperature and potential condensation issues, we're insulating all that piping. So again, just lots of miscellaneous items.
Does any of this change the schedule?
No, actually, at this point, we're still looking at October, probably the end of October for Phase 1 to be complete. However, different pieces of Phase 1 should be complete before then. So, for example, the Employee Medical Center, we're still projecting the end of August for that section of this project to be finished so that that clinic can, or that medical center can be opened. We're also working diligently to get the space opened for the Oklahoma City Public Schools Foundation as soon as we possibly can as well. So there will be some activity in the spaces before the entire project is finalized around October.
Thank you.
All right. There are a motion to approve item A. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item B is consideration of approval of final acceptance of the contract for the installation of waterproofing membrane for the top deck of the Sheraton Walker parking garage and place the maintenance bond into effect.
Yes, as you'll recall, the repairs that we've performed over at the Sheraton Walker garage, we actually had a concrete rehab project, and then we had this emergency waterproofing project. And so this is the final acceptance for that portion, the waterproofing on the top deck. We expect to bring the final acceptance for the concrete rehab hopefully next month to the trustees for approval.
So that pretty much completes everything there?
On the Sheraton Walker, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, there a motion to approve item B?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item C is consideration of approval of change order number 4 for the landscaping improvements at Union Station and approval of final acceptance and place maintenance bond into effect.
Again, we have another final acceptance item. This item does include, again, change order number 4. Change order number 4 on the landscaping project was essentially the addition of a landscaping maintenance contract for the first year for landscaping maintenance of all those new plantings. We think that will assist with any warranty issues we might have with the plantings, keeping in mind all those plantings are under warranty, and so we felt it was in the best interest and of the project to go ahead and have a contract to maintain that landscaping for the first year. So that's $9,480. We did receive a credit of $663 for a water meter that was not needed, and the total combined cost of change order number 4 is $8,000. or 7% of the contract price. We did have a deduct in change order number 1 of $10,200, which offsets that additional cost of $8,817. So this item here will approve the change order and then, again, final acceptance on the project.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item D is consideration of approval of contract with ETC Institute for Market Research Services, and I think Michael's going to discuss that with us.
Yes, good morning. Real quick, basically this contract will allow us to conduct market research as related to our non-riders, which in some cases are called choice riders, potential choice riders, and then also our customers as well. And that's carried out through a onboard survey, where every route there's a surveyor, and pretty much every trip there would be a surveyor for a certain period of time. And this market research allows us to anticipate, one, expectations and that people would like to see occur, and also help us better understand what the market is and market potential is for ridership or new ridership growth. And this data in the past has helped guide us in bringing service enhancements to you for approval and recommendations so that we are, one, responding to what our customers are looking for, and that to make sure that we're also doing what we know is the market is there to support as well. Two additional components that we've not done in the past that we're very excited about carrying out with this contract is doing a non-market or a non-rider market research project that is Hispanic community only. Its only focus is on the Hispanic community. That is one of the largest untapped markets that we have in our ridership base right now. Based on previous ridership data and demographic information, that is one of the markets that we see the least ridership in, or underrepresentation. And with the population numbers that we do have, that's somewhat skewed. We're not sure why that is the case compared to other markets around and agencies around the country. So we want to better understand that and make sure that we are communicating effectively with that audience and make sure that they are aware of our services. And this is one way to help us make sure that we invest those efforts the right way. And then another is anticipation of the modern streetcar coming to downtown Oklahoma City. We want to better understand what the needs are from a transportation standpoint from our downtown workers and those living downtown. And we understand that that has grown tremendously since we really looked at that audience about 6 to 7 years ago. And so that market research will also help aid us in communicating the benefits of transit, but also better understanding how we can serve them better. And so that's the tenet of this first year of what our goals are, is to accomplish.
Michael, that downtown piece, will there be an equal emphasis on bus ridership as compared to streetcar? I'm very interested in not just the future streetcar piece, but the current transit system and what would encourage people who don't necessarily live downtown but work downtown to ride the bus.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what the focus will be, is to look at the workers. A lot of times the workers are, what we've understood from agencies who have streetcars, is a prime user of that, so during the daytime, obviously. But we also want to understand how the residents will interact with the streetcar, but also the transit services as well, and how they support one another. That's real important.
What's the timing on the additional survey work?
We plan to begin that we're going to start the rider survey first, and then we'll probably go ahead and launch into the additional work right after that.
So you think the additional work will also occur in year one?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the goal.
All right. Any other questions, Michael? All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank
Do you hear a motion to approve item D? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item E is consideration of approval of a request for an RFP for consulting services to assist in selecting a streetcar operator and authorize the administrator to advertise and release the RFP. Jason?
Yes, so with the approval of this item, staff will be able to issue an RFP to select a consultant to help us in selecting the eventual contractor or operator of the streetcar. So what we're looking at is we're looking at taking a very similar approach to the way the MAPS office went through the process in selecting the vehicles, and that is to get a consultant to help us kind of look at and develop really what that entire scope of a streetcar operator is, help us determine the best organizational model. We're looking at different ways to organize that operation, developing cost estimates for each one of those different alternatives, and eventually helping us put together the specifications for the RFP and helping us through that operator selection process. So with approval of this, we'll be able to advertise for those services and then bring an item back to the board to award a contract.
All right. Any questions? All right. Do I have a motion to approve item E? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item F is consideration of approval of request for an RFP for consulting services to assist in site analysis, engineering, design, and construction management for a CNG fueling station, and authorize the administrator to advertise and release the RFP.
Okay, and this item, similar to the one with the streetcar operator selection process, this item will help take us to the next step in our desire to transition towards CNG for our bus fleet. As you'll recall, the Transportation Committee approved and authorized staff to look at how we could fund and locate a CNG fueling facility in order to transition all future bus replacements to CNG. And so, again, we're going to look at retaining the services of a consultant to help us through that process as well. And so what this consultant will be doing is basically looking at our current site, evaluating the operations that we currently use for fueling. They'll be looking at our maintenance facility, giving us recommendations of what needs to be done to bring the rest of our maintenance facility up to code to be able to service CNG vehicles. In addition to that, this consultant, we're going to be looking for assistance on design and construction of the project, so recommendations such as, how many fast fill stations do we need, how many slow fill stations should we account for, how many compressors, what type of storage capacity do we need on site. This consultant will be working with local utilities to determine our current pressure and flow rates of natural gas that's available. And then also helping us eventually get to the point where we can put together our bid documents and then select a construction contractor and help us manage that construction process. So excited about this RFP and the one previously approved, and that we're able to start bringing in these people to help us move along on these two critical projects.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Is there a motion to approve item F? All in favor? Opposed? I would have a motion now that we enter into executive session after we complete the agenda, and I believe this takes an individual vote, does it not, Marcia? So do I hear a motion? All in favor and have an individual vote? Yes. All right, thank you. Last item is ratification of claims and payroll. Unless there's any items on there that any of the trustees have a question about, then I would have a motion to ratify.
Move approval. Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Then we have a financial report, our schedule of revenues and expenditures for the budget to actual for the 12-month ended June 30th. Jason?
Yes, the financial reports that are in your packet, as mentioned, are through the 12 months into June 30th, but I will say, although the numbers are pretty well complete, the city is still continuing to finish up and conclude the fiscal year, so there could be some minor changes, but we don't expect anything material to change in what we're looking at here today. So we'll take a quick run through of each of the financial reports. Starting on page 2, we'll look at Transportation Division, the Parking Division, and the Oklahoma River Cruisers. So again, starting on page 2 with the Transportation Division, for the year we finished at about 96% of our projected revenues. If you'll notice, there's a couple of revenue categories I'll talk about. The revenue received from passengers or through the fare box finished at almost 104%, so we were slightly over target on our projected revenues from the fare box. At the same time, we came in under target on our federal grant reimbursements, and we've talked about this on a couple of different occasions throughout the year, but essentially those federal grants are provided to us on a reimbursement basis, and so in this case our maintenance costs came in a little bit less than what we had projected, so we simply requested less in reimbursement. For our operating expenditures, again, very similar picture to what we looked at, what we've been looking at actually throughout the year. We have savings in all categories: personal services, other services, and supplies. And most of that savings is derived from fuel. We came in significantly under budget on fuel. We've talked about that in past meetings. We did receive funding from City Council for a full year of night service, and we ended up implementing that actually into January. So we had some savings there. And then we had some savings from some administrative positions that we don't typically see. Our administrative positions are generally full most of the time, but we do have some vacancies. For example, probably the best example is our streetcar operations manager position that was approved in this year. We have not been able to fill that yet. We went through the selection process. We're going to continue. We're going to restart the selection process. So that position, for example, has been vacant all year, and we've been able to capture that savings. So we have a lot of one-time savings in this year's budget that we don't typically see and would not expect to see moving forward. So even with that, if you look at the excess of operating income after payments and transfers, you'll see that even with a transfer to capital for fixed route bus replacement and additional capital projects, we still finished $553,000 in revenues above our expenses on the Transportation Division. And then looking at the next page, page 3, our parking operations. Again, looking at total revenues, we finished at 110% of our projected revenues, or $763,000 over budget. And as we've mentioned before, we really began kind of gaining some ground on our revenues really the last quarter of this year. If you'll recall, when we started the year, due to the Arts District Garage opening late, the Century Center Garage opening late, we were actually trailing revenues for several months. So we've made that up and then some, which I think is a very positive sign for the parking system. Looking at our operating expenditures, we finished essentially right on budget for our personal services. We came in at about 80% of our budget on other services and fees. That's where all of our reimbursements to operate the garages and the lots are accounted for. And then looking down at the total excess of revenues over expenditures, even after our debt service payment, we finished to the good with revenues exceeding expenditures by $1.6 million for the fiscal year. And then looking at river operations, again looking at total revenues, we came in at 62% of the budget, or about $77,000 under projections. Again, May was certainly a very slow month for us. We virtually were not able to put any service out, which impacted our revenues there. But we were trailing on our projected revenues even before then. So we were not able to make up, gain any ground on our revenues. On operating expenses, on the other hand, after amending the budget, we did finish at 97.3% of our budget, or $26,000 under budget in operating expenditures. I think that's all I have on the financials. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions, any of the trustees? If not, then I'll have a motion to receive our financial report.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? All right. Our program reports, transit system is the first.
Mr. Chairman, trustees, nice to see you. Good morning. Thanks for having us. I'd like to touch on 4 topics of the June 2015 transit report: safety, ridership, on-time performance, and what I'll call our report card, since it was the final month of our fiscal year, our performance compared to the goals that we set. We were responsible for 2 preventable accidents in June. We had 3 non-preventable accidents. This brings our 3-month preventable accident rate to 1.7 preventable accidents per month, which is 1.7 too many. You know? Jeannie, help. Really? Oh, that one to the left. Daily ridership in our fixed route. If you look at the presentation slide, oops, that's not what we're looking for. There it is, thanks. I'll get that right. We transported 11,751 passengers in our Monday through Friday fixed route operation, which when compared to the 10,428 is a 12.7% increase year over year. Our downtown Discovery Monday through Friday ridership was up 16% to 288 passengers from 248. Our average Saturday ridership for the fixed route was up 11.6% year over year. Our downtown Discovery, and this is a nice number, our downtown Discovery Saturday June ridership was 447 passengers per Saturday, which is up 39% from June's 321 passengers. A big part of that was we transported 652 passengers on the 6th of January, or I'm sorry, on the 6th of July. There was a lot going on in Bricktown with music things and some other stuff, but our guys that Saturday called me a couple of times and said that the buses were just completely full. I hope that we get to do that a lot. Okay. For the fiscal year, we transported 3.335 million passengers, which is a 17.8% increase year over year in our Monday through Friday fixed route. Isn't that something? Isn't that something?
I couldn't help myself.
I know that. No, I appreciate that. In fact, I kind of want to run through these again because they tickle me. Our Monday through Friday fixed route ridership was up 12.7%. Saturday service was up 11.6%. Downtown Discovery's up 16%. Saturday Discovery's up 39%, and Woohoo 17.8% increase year over year in the fixed route ridership. Our link service for the month of June 2015 was up 4%. Our daily service was up 4% from the previous month, and our night service was up 8% from the previous month. However, it was down 17% from the previous year, and we all kind of remember, I think, that our price went up and there were some other things that went on. And this is a very valuable service, but it's kind of in flux right now in terms of May's numbers with the historic bad weather. We're kind of faulty, so there's that. And secondly, I think that we're seeing a bit of a transfer from some of the link service passengers to the night service, because about 40% of those routes, or 40% of those stops in the south coincide with Route 11. Just a look ahead, when we're fortunate enough if we can get the night service going north and south, over 80% of the south routes or the south locations that the link presently stops at will be covered by the number, by our night service buses. Okay, let's go to, I'm going backwards again. The new night service slide, if you would take a look at that, you'll see that we achieved 196 passengers per night, which is a 39% increase over the previous month. Again, the previous month, experienced that weather, but it's still Our average for the first 5 months is 149 passengers, and 196 is a really good figure. We had a historic 273 passengers that rode night service on the 26th, and there were a couple days of 260, 262. So we look for continuing improvements in ridership on that very valuable service to our citizens.
Refresh our memories on the time for the night service.
It started on, the time, you mean the time that is operated?
Operational, yeah.
Yeah, from 7 o'clock until midnight, and there are 4 buses that are running, 2 on each route, and we implemented it on January 26th.
And then this coming January-ish, there'll be another 2 routes, right? The north and south routes?
Yes, it will. We will. That'll be wonderful, and our citizens are waiting for that. But that's a very popular service, and it serves our citizens well, because it really opens employment opportunities and others up. So the night service I'm very pleased with, and so are they. Our on-time performance for June. On-time performance for June was 68.8%, which is an 11 point, oops, I'm going to have to get Jeannie to do this for me. It's 68.8%, which is a 11.7% improvement from the previous year, June 2014, and it's up just slightly from the previous month. Okay, now for our report card. And this is Leading for Results, which is the citywide program that we've assigned to ourselves with the help of others, various goals, and this is how we performed. And the first thing that strikes anyone who looks at this is that the service has been performing very well against goal for a long time, but certainly twice as long as I've been here. I was here for the last 6 months, and it's just such my pleasure that you all included me in such a successful system. And we were above in all significantly, including the one, my favorite is the vehicle accidents. We're 5% ahead of goal. We were 79 passengers behind goal. We came in at 99.3% on our Monday through Friday fixed route. Our on-time bus arrivals, we came in at 10% less than goal, and that is something that we're working on diligently.
How does the number of passengers per service hour on the fixed routes, how does that compare to last year?
Oh, it's barely up. As it looks like it's up by, what is that, 2%? We're 2% above our goal is what it's
above the goal, but how was it compared to
Actually, last year was just almost 18. I think it was like 17.98, but let's say essentially 18, and I think that's what's been, pretty remarkable is the fact that we've added all these additional revenue hours or service hours to the system. We would normally anticipate that riders per service hour to decline, and we've been able to maintain that ratio even with more hours in the system. But actually increase, right.
Thanks, Jason. I misunderstood your question. Thanks, Craig. I wasn't here. How's that? Anyway, any other questions, please?
Any question? All right, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Good report.
Thank you very much.
Next is our long-range plan, and I don't know, Jason, you're going to speak to that along with the parking system?
Yes, I'd be glad to share some brief comments on both of those. Looking at the long-range plan, there's really 2 items on there to mention. One is we continue our work with ACOG, with Oklahoma City Planning Department, and with the Oklahoma City County Health Department in working and looking at the Northwest Corridor Concept Plan. As you'll recall, our 2005 fixed guideway study identified a corridor essentially downtown north on Classen to Northwest Expressway and out to the west as one that had potential for fixed guideway. And so this is a concept plan that we've been working on. It's been a great partnership opportunity for all of those different entities to get involved. And essentially we're spending time looking at some things like how could BRT work in that particular corridor, how do we make it more accessible to pedestrians and bicyclists so that they can access the rapid transit should it ever be developed. And in addition to that, park and ride considerations. So we're just kind of looking at those ideas. The reason I mention it is because we are going to have a community meeting next Thursday. I believe that's August 13th. And wanted to mention that and certainly invite anybody that's viewing to that meeting. It's going to be that evening at Oklahoma City University in the Minders Hall. And so that's been a big project. The other one I would mention is the Route Side Amenities TAP grant that we received. We continue to work on that project. Public Works has been a big help in helping us study the right-of-way and do the environmental work. ODOT will actually be making the enhancements to the bus stops. But this project is neat in that it takes a lot of our existing bus stops that are out there, whether it's shelters or benches, and it's making them more accessible. So it could be curb cuts, it could be sidewalks. There's lots of different things that can make a bus stop more accessible. And I mention it because, you know, when we look at the emphasis we've been placing on adding bus stops throughout our system, our goal is to have 45 new bus stops by about this time next year. We have 31 in process, 15 of those already completed. So we're looking at the bus shelters, and we're increasing the number of those. We're working, and we'll be bringing an item to the board next month to seek authorization to continue to partner with the MAPS office in order to add concrete pads for bus benches where MAPS is putting in sidewalks. So we've been developing that partnership, and now we have this TAP grant. So I feel like we're really ramping up our efforts on our bus stops in the community.
And I would also mention that, you know, that we're planning a strategic planning session in August, and each of the trustees are going to be asked to come up with 7 ideas of the future and what we can work on. And I think that really ties into maybe a new long-range plan, because our current long-range plan we put into effect many years ago, and it's just been kind of talked about and added to a little bit. And so what we come out of this planning session with will really give us a focus on what our new long-range plan will be.
Okay. And then on the parking report, quickly, our vacancy rate, our occupancy rate, we have no vacancy, is at about 112%, consistent with what we've seen over the last several months. Our total operating revenue from our parking system was $789,000. 98,636 of that was derived from event revenue. In addition, I would mention on the Arts District parking garage, you'll notice we have right at about 700 of the 802 spaces sold. We will be looking to sell a few more spaces, but we are getting to the point where we have to be mindful of the future tenants and some transient parking as well. So we're getting real close to I guess I would say, being sold out there. And then we already talked about a little bit about the progress on the Phase 1 retail build-out and the timing of that. But I would also share with you that on the Santa Fe garage, the elevator project, as you'll recall, we've been working on the south elevator tower. We've had 2 elevators down for complete replacement for the last several months. We had our inspection on July 27th. Unfortunately, there were some things the inspector found that we have to correct before we'll be able to use that elevator. And as recently as I believe yesterday, the elevator company had made those repairs and was trying to schedule that next inspection. So once we know when that inspection date is, we'll be doing everything we can do on our end to expedite that re-inspection. And for anybody that might be listening to today's meeting that's parking in the Santa Fe garage, we certainly appreciate their patience, and we will do whatever we can to get that elevator going as soon as possible. When we start the next phase of the elevator, the north tower, will actually be taking 1 elevator down at a time. So once the 2 new ones are up and running, then there'll actually be 3 in service while we continue the project.
Have we been capable of accommodating the new businesses in downtown, the new restaurants like Mahogany's and pizza, I mean, for employees? Have we been able to accommodate any of their needs, or do you know?
I can't think, specifically of any requests we've received. We very well may have. I can check with Republic and follow up on that.
Well, a lot of that's going on, a lot of new stuff moving to downtown, and those employees need a place to park, and I'm sure that employers are willing to, probably for a great number of the employees, pay for their parking, but if we can't accommodate them, it makes it a little difficult. But
Right. Yeah, we will look into that. I'll see how many inquiries we've actually received recently.
Jason,
Yes, sir.
on the occupancy rate for our parking garages, any thoughts as to what the new parking garage that will be constructed soon next to the Devon Tower, will that have any impact on our occupancy rates for the Oklahoma City?
Actually, we're not certain on that. I mean, I would think it would have some impact, but what I can say is we have a parking study currently underway, and part of the delay in actually completing that parking study is once we learned of that development and the parking garage potential, we're having the consultant kind of help us answer those questions.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, during the parking report, I think might be an appropriate time to mention the retirement of Debbie Holtzclaw. And, we recognized another retiring employee this morning, but Debbie apparently didn't want to have a public acknowledgement, probably a little bit worried about the difficulty of expressing herself at a departure like this. But Debbie took us through a really challenging time in our parking environment with the construction of a new garage, with the significant renovation of the Century Center garage, rehabilitation of the Santa Fe and Sheridan Walker garages. And I just wanted to acknowledge her service, and hopefully she'll hear how much we appreciated her service to the trust. 26 years of service.
Thank you. That is true. So. All right. Michael?
Good morning. I want to echo those same comments. Debbie will be certainly missed just as a staff member and colleague as well, and a very good friend for sure, one we'll call on. One of the things I'd like to draw attention to in your report is just our report card for the items in which we measure on LFR, and also as a way to guide our customer relation efforts. On the page 3, you'll notice that there's June inquiries by topic. And one of the benefits of looking at that helps us to understand if there's a trend of issues that occur only at certain times of the year, or are they consistent across the board. And one of the things that we do measure is vehicle maintenance. And that's usually things where people in the past have let us know when air conditioning isn't working well. And we've had a very excessive heat lately, very strong heat, and we have had very little, actually no complaints through our system regarding that. Air conditioning was not working. So I want to give a kudos to our maintenance division and that staff for certainly keeping the buses cool in such a very hot time here. But I'd like to just call your attention to that area so that you can look at that over time as well, and you may find something that may stick out to you. But that's a good way for us to understand trends and look at things that need to be addressed on a much wider scale. We also have, as Jason mentioned, a community meeting coming up next week. There will be a press release issued later this afternoon on that. So that we'll be announcing that to the public, as well as, I believe, emails have been going out from those partner groups, along with invitations, and also a flyer and leave-behind sheets for meetings that they've done face-to-face. And this is a very technical time for us, in which we're doing a lot of technical work, getting ready for that night ridership, or night routes that will start occurring in January. And so we're working with our team behind the scenes right now. Not a lot of public-facing time right now, just because of that takes a lot of time to create and to proof and to ensure that they're accurate. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? All right, Michael, thank you. Our river cruise report, Jeannie.
Good morning. And I'd also like to say that Debbie will be missed. She started in parking at the same time I started with the river cruise operation, and both being managers of an operator and construction projects, she was valuable to me in being able to share information and her insights. And I wish her well. As for the river, as I hinted at last month, June was a record of riders for the month of June for the river cruisers. Extremely good ridership, and I'll be excited to share with you about July being the highest ridership we've ever had in a single month on the system. Also, the specialty cruises, we did reduce the number of specialty cruises that we do. We only do 2 a month now. We used to do quite a few. This is a cost savings program, and believe it has also contributed to our increased ridership on evening ferry service. They are selling out weeks in advance, the specialty cruises that we do have, and we're looking forward to perhaps looking at adding a few more maybe next year. As for Spokies, our contracted operator, Brent Tongo with Bicycle Transit Systems, keeps himself busy getting involved in activities around town, activities such as H&H and some of the other activities where he promotes the Spokies program. He's also been very diligent in helping us implement the rebranding project. All of our completely rebranded and refurbished bicycles are on the street now. We are at a total of 30 bikes in service that are in peak condition and completely rebranded. The rebranding of the stations is expected to be completed by the end of this month. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
The trips on Spokies, how's that, what's the definition of that?
Spokies?
Yeah, the
Spokies
trip. Each time somebody rents a bicycle, or?
It's called bike sharing, and it's very similar to a rental, though typically if you rent a bicycle, say for a recreational use, you would go to a bike shop and pay something like $12 to $18 an hour, and then you would have use of that bike for the entire term. With Spokies, it's a much lower cost with bike share because you're actually just borrowing a bike. You could pay a $5 fee, have use of it for the whole day, as long as you limit yourself to rides of 30 minutes or less. So unlike a bike rental, Spokies or bike sharing is more of a transit option. It's more of getting yourself from point A to point B. And in many cities, these could be visitors, these could be residents coming downtown, these could be people who work downtown. Instead of having to go to a parking garage and getting your car out to go to a meeting, you could jump on a Spokies bike, a bike share bike, and go to your meeting that way. And it's much lower cost, much more convenient.
But each time they do that, it's called a trip. I'm just trying to see on your chart on here, trips, that we had almost 800 trips for the month.
Yes, a trip would be someone actually checking out a bicycle and then taking it to another station.
So in essence, it's a 30-minute ride, basically. Is that right?
Yes, and some of them are as short as 10, 15 minutes.
Right,
it just
but
depends on how far they're going.
You reserve or you pay for that 30-minute slot, and so it's however long that ride is in that time period.
And yes, and as an example, if you're working downtown and you pick up a Spokies bike, say at the library, and you ride it out to McNally's for lunch or maybe out to Deep Deuce or something like that, drop it off at that station, that's like a 10-minute ride. Then you finish your meeting or your lunch, you get back on the bike, you come back to where you started, back to your office. You're not charged for that second trip because each of your trips were less than 30 minutes, so it's $5 for the day, as long as and you can take as many trips as you want.
But it's 2 trips.
Yes, it would be counted as 2 trips.
Okay.
Jeannie, you had mentioned we have about 30 bikes in the system now, and we are working on a RFP now to look at additional bike purchases. Can you?
Yes. The current system that we have was purchased from a Canadian company, Sandvault Global, and the system at one time was one of the major bike share systems in the country. And with our 8 stations, we're now their largest customer. So I think essentially they've transitioned their business to only producing kiosks and not necessarily providing the software support for an entire system. And for this reason, we're putting together a packet, best value bid packet, to go out on the street to some of these other bike share system providers and see if there's something better that will suit our needs and something that will be more reliable and upgradable, something with better software, better reporting. And we've done a lot of research. Fortunately, Brent Tonga with Bicycle Transit has been doing bike share. He worked in the Denver system. He's worked up in Madison, Wisconsin. The corporate office that he works for have done the New York, they've done Boston. So we have a very large, well-experienced group to help us put together this packet for our request. We have a lot of research that we've done. Obviously, we don't need a system like New York. We're not nearly that big, and we don't need to cover that much area. We're probably a little closer to something like Topeka or Wichita or some of the smaller systems that are expandable but aren't overkill for what we need for our environment. And so that we hope to have that out by the end of the month.
Okay, thank you. All right, any items from the trustees before we go into executive session?
Would you receive the reports, please?
Oh, excuse me. Yes, to receive all our program reports. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. All right, so we'll go into executive. All right, do I have a motion from our executive session?
I move approval of the property settlement offer as directed in executive session.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Our meeting's adjourned.